Hi, I'm Joanne Musselle. I'm the Group Chief Underwriting Officer for Hiscox. We employ over 3,000 people, and this is My Duvet Flip.
You're the Group Chief Underwriting Officer. What's that mean?
Unlike selling a can of Coke, we are selling a policy that might cost us nothing, or it could cost 10 million. Lots of characteristics to balance it out and create a diversified portfolio.
Why should they join insurance?
We give people confidence to realise their ambitions, or whatever that is.
Are you ready for my final question?
Absolutely.
What's your duvet flip? What gets you out of bed in the morning to flip the duvet?
So what actually gets me out of bed in the morning to flip the duvet is Hi, I'm Joanne Musselle. I'm the Group Chief Underwriting Officer for Hiscox. So just before I sit down with Jack, I'm feeling really excited. I said yes to coming on My Duvet Flip because through my career, so many people were so generous with their time, their advice, their wisdom, and if in any small part I can impart some of mine, then that will help somebody else. The one thing I'd want people to take away from my episode is just ask, because you'll be surprised what people say yes to. Ask people for their advice, for their time, because people are really generous. I'm excited to do this.
So Jo, welcome to My Duvet Flip. How are we?
I'm very good, thank you.
I'm so excited to have you on, your career journey, but also to learn about the leadership lessons that you've learned along the way.
Okay.
And how we can take some of that golden nuggets and share it with the world. But I want to start here. First, tell me a little bit about your kind of upbringing, where you kind of started. Tell me a little bit about your story.
So I'm Welsh. I was born in Barry. So Gavin and Stacey put us on the map. So I think everybody probably knows where Barry is now. So yeah, I just grew up in what I would call quite a typical working class family. My mum and dad were neighbours, next door neighbours. So that's really nice. So both of our families are really close because they grew up together. And had a really nice family, I'd say family upbringing. And then, lots of friends, really, had a really, I'd say happy upbringing. And I did a maths degree, which we'll come on to, but somebody said to me quite recently, why were you good at maths? You've always been good at maths. And we put it down to my grandmother. So my grandmother my mum worked when I was young. So my grandmother used to pick me up from school. And when I was about 5, I was uptown with my mum, and this lady said, "Oh, hello, Joanne," and started chatting to me. And my mum obviously didn't know who it was, said, "Who is that?" And I said, "It was the lady from the betting office." So my grandmother would take me in there because she was a bit of a gambler. So I would be filling out slips, working out odds. And I think that's where my love of maths come from, which is from my grandmother.
And did you have any ideas on what you wanted to do in terms of a career, like early on, or was it just like figure it out as it came?
Yeah, figure it out as it came. I think I always came from a family of workers. My mum was a bookkeeper, my dad was an electrician, and they had a really strong work ethic. So as soon as I could work, I started work. So I was a Saturday girl at Boots, which I really enjoyed. And I always, even then, I just wanted to be the best that I could be of that. So the best type of Saturday girl went and worked on the chemist counter. So that's what I aspired to do, to go and work on the counter. When I worked in a pub, which I really enjoyed, I just, trying to sort of work out ways of making things a bit better, improve customer service. And then when I was in university, I worked for 4 years as a domestic in a hospital. And I would say that was one of my best jobs of my life, because you just learn so much. I was a cleaner, sort of cleaning and giving out meals, and it was just incredible what you saw, the people you met, the life lessons at quite a young age. Some of the obviously incredibly sad stories, but some of the most amazing stories. There was a guy there. And I was on the men's surgical ward, and he was real fun. He was probably in his 50s, I think, and he was really fun. And for a couple of weeks, he was sort of making me laugh. And then he got quite sick, and he unfortunately had to have both of his legs amputated. And I can remember coming in the next day, and being nervous. I was quite young and thinking, gosh, what am I going to say? And it's not going to be so jokey. And I went in, and he was sat up in bed with a for sale sign on his slippers. And I just thought, it's incredible, people's attitude, and I think it was a real lesson of, it is what it is, but it's how you deal with it, which is really important.
Absolutely.
And how he dealt with it was just incredible, like a massive life lesson. But yeah, so I did that, and then I had this maths degree and I didn't really know what to do with it. Didn't really come from a professional family, so I didn't quite know what type of jobs were on offer. So I went to a careers advisor, and I went through all of the different options that I could do, and insurance popped out. And it sounded a really interesting career. I was really into statistics and working out why somebody who drives a red car probably should pay more than somebody drives a white car, or why a colour of car would change the price of a premium, things like that, which I thought was quite fascinating. And that was the start of my insurance career, and I've never looked back. It's been the best thing I've ever done.
I love that. I love that a lot. And what is your advice to anyone who goes to a career advisor or looks online or whatever and says, right, I want to go down this path? Like, you obviously, insurance for you was like, that's what I want to do, and you went for it. But what can others do? Because the world is quite competitive.
Really?
There is a lot happening in the world. You can be swayed left or right very quickly in terms of good news, bad news. What's your advice to anyone who's trying to figure something out on what to do?
Yeah, I think, look, in hindsight, insurance was the right career for me, but I didn't really know that at the time. So I had, the thought is something that I might be interested in. And, like a lot of people, I was applying and I got lots of rejections. It's not something that, I think when you look at people's career, you always look at what they got, but nobody advertises that you went for so many roles and you didn't get them. But yeah, I applied for lots of different roles and I didn't get them. But what I tried to do was get feedback. So not think, okay, that's they're wrong, I'm right. It was more the opposite, which is, okay, they're looking for something that maybe I haven't demonstrated or maybe I haven't got. So what are they looking for? And if it's something that maybe I've got but I haven't demonstrated, well, take that to the next interview and demonstrate it. But if it's something that they're looking for and I haven't got, okay, how can I get that? And you don't always have to be in a job to get the experience. You can volunteer for things. You can, if they were looking for, I don't know, some form of, say, leadership, you can do that in lots of different ways. You can, volunteer at your local sports club and, take the lead as a there's lots of different things you can do to get experience. So for me, it's, never give up in terms of, you've got to, you're not going to probably not going to get things on your first round, but get feedback. And then most importantly, act on that feedback and do something about it and put yourself in a slightly better position for the next time. And I think that sort of trying to constantly learn, I think, is a really important thing. But yeah, I think most people don't know what they want to do. I don't know anybody who said when they were young, when I grow up, I want to be an insurance underwriter. I just don't think it comes out of children, like young.
Well, they will after this.
Well, I hope they do.
I want to talk a little bit about, you talk about feedback, and I totally agree with feedback as much as you can. I start to use this saying people have feedback fear. They say they like the feedback, but when it comes down to it, they get fear of the feedback once it's given to them. How can people overcome that feedback fear?
I think, like anything, the more you do, the more comfortable it becomes. And I really like in-the-moment feedback. Not everybody does, but I do. I think the way that I respond is more in the moment. So, so first and foremost, I'll say to people, I'm working on X. And so let people know what you're working on. And so, if you see me do that, give me some feedback. And because so I think that's really important is inviting feedback. Because once you invite it, then people more willingly give it. So I think that's the first thing, is make sure that you're open to it.
Invite feedback to the table.
Absolutely invite feedback. And then the other thing is do something with it. I think people would be very reluctant to keep giving you feedback if it fell on deaf ears. So, really be seen to be doing something with it. I try to, always give constructive feedback, something that people can genuinely do something with, and I think that's really important. And for me, it's just you can distinguish between the what and the how. What you say can be actually very direct. How you say it, of course, you take into account people's feelings, what they, So I think it's the what and the how. But for me, I'd say, anybody who's fearful of it, just do it more. Invite it and proactively invite it from others.
And how you give feedback may be kind of dressed up differently per person on how they do it, or is it just do it how you say? Because I love, when I get feedback, I like it just direct, get rid of all the dressing around it, just tell me as it is, but then also come with some solutions on how you would change it. Otherwise, how am I meant to grow if I don't have the ideas with you to run it through? So what is that? Do you get feedback if you're a young manager, or whether you're a leader and you just become a leader? Should feedback be how you best present it, or should it be presented how best people receive it?
Look, I think everyone's different, and I think the best type of feedback, it takes into account exactly as you just said. How are people going to receive it? And we're all different. We all respond differently. I like it really direct. I think for me, having it direct and with the solution, that would suit me. But that doesn't suit everybody. Other people want a little bit more, or I would call, sowing the seeds, not so direct, but maybe the first time of the conversation, just a small sowing of the seed and maybe a prompt, and then maybe they're more of a reflector, so they'll pick up that seed and reflect on it, and then come back and say, actually, you mentioned X, can you just explore that a little bit more for me? That probably is they receive that better than maybe the way that you and I have just said that works for us. So I think everyone's different, and I think as a leader, as a manager, you've got to be really conscious of that. I think. And
the individual find out what best works for them, and then communicate how they take on feedback. So, for instance, me, I like the punch in the face and then followed by the ice pack. Do you know what I mean? Like, let's just keep it simple. Yeah. But others may like time to reflect. They might like
Absolutely.
it. But work out what you like, and then address, or what you feel comfortable with, and then address that with the people that are giving the feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like anything, it's like, we're all different. We've all got different styles. We all respond in different ways. Some people, respond in one way, others in another. So I think, just making sure that when you give feedback, and actually when you receive feedback as well, that you do so ensuring that you're taking on the other person's style.
So you went into insurance. What were some of the things that you realised very quickly that you may not know if you're not in the industry, that have been life lessons?
Okay, so the first thing I learned was insurance is not just motor and home. I think, most of us will have, the only thing you will know about insurance is, well, I insure my car or I insure my home. Possibly you might know about business insurance. Insurance is so huge. We insure aviation, satellites, terrorism, kidnapping, ransom, professional indemnity. There's so many different parts of insurance that you just probably wouldn't know if you didn't know anybody in the industry. So I think that was the first thing for me, was actually it's much bigger than I probably had anticipated it would be, more diverse and more interesting. So I think that would be the first thing. The other thing that I learned really quickly is there's a lot to it. And my advice, someone gave me this advice, and I would give this advice to anybody starting out a career in insurance, is understand insurance end to end. Even if you work in marketing or communications or underwriting or one part of it, you've got to make sure that you understand the whole thing end to end, because unless you really understand the business end to end, you're never really going to get the most out of it, or indeed see the opportunities. So when I started, so say somebody gave me this piece of advice, and I threw myself into any opportunity that was going. There was somebody needed something in, I don't know, claims. I was first with my hand up to go and have to help out, or there was a road show with brokers. I didn't even know what a broker was, but again, I volunteer.
I don't know what a road show is, so.
So but just volunteer, yeah. And in that one, I volunteered, and I helped out with the logistics of the event. I certainly wasn't front and centre, but I got to see, okay, what. So I think that was the thing for me, is it's very broad, it's very diverse, but really whatever business you're in, it's really good to understand that business end to end. And the one thing for me with insurance was, there's lots of parts of insurance, but claims, that's the product. That's what we sell. So unlike, I don't know, if you a glass maker, you're buying something physical. With insurance, you're not actually buying anything physical. You're buying a promise, you're buying a piece of paper and a promise that if something happens, and normally it's not a great thing that happens, that insurance company will be there to service you in your hour of need. And so claims for me, that is we call it the shop window. That is the shop window. And so, for me, experiencing the product, experiencing claims, dealing with our customers, sitting across from people who had some pretty awful experiences. And our job was to put them back in the position that they were before and to negate that pretty terrible experience. That would be my somebody gave me that advice, and I think it's been fantastic advice.
And you're the Group Chief Underwriting Officer. What does that mean?
So, when my children were really small, I got 2 children, they're 20 and 17, and when they were really small, my daughter asked me, and she was about 6, what is an underwriter? We talk about risk picking, we talk about underwriting, but she was 6, so she didn't really understand. So I said, okay, take a bag of M&Ms, all different colours. My job is to decide what colours we want and how many of them. So, there's all these thousands of risks, millions of risks in the world, and my job as the underwriter is to say, okay, our appetite, so the types of things that we want are X, the blue M&Ms, but we only want 4 of the blue M&Ms because we don't want to be so overweight in blue M&Ms. We'll have a few red M&Ms as well to balance it out and create what we call a diversified portfolio. So I'd say that's probably a very the analogy I use with my daughter, but I don't think it helps.
I think it's brilliant. I think it helps whether you're 6 years old or 60 years old. If you don't know about it, it's a pack of M&Ms, and it's making sure you pick the right ones and that you have a balanced.
And charge the right price. So if you think about it, if you were insuring a home, there's lots of characteristics about that home that would dictate that price we would charge you. So, where that home is. So is it close to a river and might flood, or actually is it on the 20th story and probably not likely to flood? How much that home is worth. So, if anything happened, how much would we pay to put you back in the position? What's in it? Is it full of fine art and valuables, or is it more, other things? So, and then, so that's all about the physical part of the risk. And then, how much it would cost to rebuild, as an example. But then there's all the parts of the risk which are about you. So who are you? What do you do? How you utilise your home? Do you run it as a business, or actually is it home? Who lives with you? It impacts the type of propensity of claims. So it's all things like that. So I'd say from an underwriting point of view, we take all of those sort of factors into account to work out, do we want the blue M&M, but actually what price we should charge, because, clearly the other really interesting thing about insurance is, unlike selling a can of Coke, where you know how much it costs to make, what the materials are, your distribution, your marketing, and if you charge X, you're going to make a margin. We have no idea. We are selling a policy, and that policy might cost us nothing because the person or the policy doesn't have a claim, or it could cost us 10 million. So at point of sale, we really don't know how much that policy is going to cost us, which is both interesting and fascinating, and you've got to be very careful.
And it goes back to your days in the betting shop, isn't it? The odds. Looking at the odds, and because it is.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is all about probability, and most of those things are known, right? So you can see what the frequency of loss would be, but it changes. So if you take examples, things like climate change has an impact. So are we having more frequent or more severe weather events? That obviously impacts. There might be risks of the future that we're not risks of the past, and so we've got to make sure that we're taking all of that into account. But yeah, ultimately, you know, what we're doing as part of insurance is really about pooling risk, and the real premise of insurance is, you know, the premiums of many pay for the losses of few. You know, it's that real sort of pooling of risk. So, you know, when someone's house, unfortunately, tragically, you know, burns down, then, you know, we are there right at that hour of need to put them back in the position that hopefully, you know, that they were before. And, you know, that is our job.
Jo, I'm a big believer that life is all about long life learning. And you'll meet random people, or you'll meet someone that you know for a long time, and they'll just give you a leadership lesson or something that just will get you stopping in your way and getting you thinking. And you've had any of those moments, and what's some of you probably had a few, like, that you can share, that someone just, or people, and a group of people, what's some of your, like, long life lessons that have stuck with you?
Yeah, I think, let's start at the beginning. I think the lesson that my parents instilled in me from a very young age, which has been my lifelong lesson, is you're not better than anybody else, but nobody's better than you. And it's a really interesting one because it gives you lots of things. It gives you confidence when you're faced with a situation that you don't know, and, you know, it gives you confidence. But, you know, humility, just that whole, it just has stead me in, I think, really good stead for the whole of my life. So I think that would be like a lesson that I've taken with me throughout my life.
So you're not better than anyone else, but no one else is better than you.
Yeah.
It's lovely, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's true. I mean, it's absolutely true. And I think that, you know, what it's done for me is, and I liken it to when I was a cleaner in the hospital. You know, you are probably at the lowest pecking order of hospital ecosystem. And it's interesting, you know, some people treat you like that, and some people absolutely don't, and treat you as an equal. And, you know, for me, taking back that sort of hospital experience is the hospital doesn't work without everybody. You know, your company doesn't work without everybody. My company doesn't work without everybody, and we're all equally as important because we're creating that ecosystem. So I think that's like a really, really important one. But lots of others that I've sort of had through my career. One of my early bosses at AXA, I made a really big mistake. It was, you know, it was one of those that I've spotted it myself, and sort of a fear. I sort of miscalculated something, and I was obviously very apologetic, and he was brilliant, and he just said to me, the less you do, the less mistakes you'll make. The more you do, the more mistakes you'll make, and you've got to release yourself from being perfect. Because if you're trying to be perfect at everything, you'll never do anything. And I think that's a brilliant lesson, because we're not born knowing what to do, and if you have to be perfect at everything you do, you won't try. So that's a really, really big lesson for me as well.
And you obviously went out to Asia. Tell me a little bit about that experience, because did you go from London to Asia, or was it from?
Well, I was in Cardiff.
Cardiff,
so I was working for AXA in Cardiff, and my boyfriend at the time had a job opportunity to be in Singapore, in Asia. And I had not really travelled much as a child, so I hadn't really been outside of Europe. And so I was really naive. I didn't really know what it was, but I sort of said, okay, you go. I'm very happy doing what I'm doing, and just got my first, you know, graduate job, and I was very, very pleased to be doing that. And then I went out there on holiday and thought, wow, oh my God, this is amazing. And so then, I applied for AXA at the time. Didn't have an operation in Asia. They subsequently did, but I then applied for jobs, and I was just really lucky. I just seemed to have a skill set that the region was looking for, and I got about 6 job offers. So I was really, really, really fortunate, and I was there for 5 years, and I absolutely loved it. I loved it for lots of different reasons. One, the experience was just incredible from a work-wise point of view. I was doing things that I've never done before. I really threw myself into everything, and you were quite small operations, so you were doing everything, and so that was brilliant. Culturally, it was just such an amazing experience, dealing with different people, different cultures, different drivers, and that was just phenomenal. I played rugby when I was out there, and our rugby club, I think, had something like 60 different nationalities, which was just brilliant. So, not just work-wise, but socially as well, just dealing with different people from all over the world. And, you know, I look back and I've still got lifelong friends from that experience. So, yeah, it was one of the best things I've ever done. You know, I would say my career has been quite opportunistic, but I definitely encourage people to take those opportunities when they arise. And I just felt like it might not have worked out. I mean, it was the best thing I've ever done. But in my head at the time, if it doesn't work out, I can come home. You know,
so you had no fear or anything to say, oh, I'm going to go all that way, and you just thought, I want to go for it.
Yeah, no, I just felt like it would be a different experience. I would learn something, and I learned a huge amount. But I always felt like, but if it didn't work out, I could come back. And I think that's what my family upbringing gave me, which was confidence to go and try new things, because they were probably always going to be there. And so that's the confidence that I had, that I could try something, and actually if it didn't work out, I could come back. But I mean, it did, and I had a fantastic experience.
And what's something you'd say has changed your whole life? So in 2018, I became an international special advisor to New Zealand Prime Minister on the Maori community.
Wow.
And I just had no idea. And I went out there and I thought I was kind. And the sense of kindness in the community, especially in the Maori community, when they're local in their rural areas, they have nothing. They all went out in the morning. They knew I was coming. All went out. One got the fish. And they put a lovely meal on. You just realise that the sense of community is sometimes all you need to be fulfilled. What's something in Singapore for you that just made you change your whole concept? Because you can get a bit naive here in London sometimes, a little bit with everything around and the busyness. And then I went somewhere like New Zealand, I just thought, okay.
Yeah, I think it was that. I think for me, it was that sense of community. You know, particularly when I mentioned something like the rugby club, most people didn't have close family. You know, most people were there and didn't have all of their family around. Some obviously did. Some were from Singapore, but a lot didn't. And for me, it was that sense of community. You know, that sense of genuinely. You know, you might say, oh, I haven't tried X, and the next minute it was there. And you're right, and that's not always generous with money, it's with time, it's thought. That was the thing for me, which is, you know, generosity is mostly about thought and it's mostly about time. And people are very generous with their time. People want to give back. People want to build up other people, knock other people down in general. And yeah, I definitely found that in my experiences.
A little bit like you today, coming and giving your time. You're very busy and you're giving your time to give back and support other people with their careers, so thank you.
No, I mean, the reality is, when I was in my career, and even now, you know, you talked about being a lifelong learner. That is it, you know, sort of, you mentor and be mentored. I think that is something. So I've had so many amazing experiences from so many people that I've worked with. They've given me so much of their time, their wisdom. You know, if I can do that in any small part, then I desperately want to.
So you've been at Hiscox for 22 years?
I have.
What keeps you staying?
So what attracted me to Hiscox was, I thought it was a really interesting company, really good values, and excellent people, and that's definitely what's kept me. I think values for me are non-negotiable. I mean, but you know, certain values for me are non-negotiable. Integrity, non-negotiable. But the values of Hiscox, one of the values, which I think is quite an unusual value, but it's a value that I absolutely hold dear, is courage. You know, not everybody has the value, and it's actively encouraged. You know, we want people to, if everyone's turning left, to say, hang on a minute, I think we should turn right, and these are the reasons why. I mean, this is what. So I think that the values for me from Hiscox are fantastic. I've also gone on and had an amazing career in one place. And that is down to people taking a chance on me as well. I've gone into roles that I've never done before. You know, knowing what to do when you've never done it before. People have to take a chance on you, and they've definitely done that at Hiscox. And then people. I work with some of the most incredible people, both currently and also past. There's been many, many people that I've worked with at Hiscox during my career that have been exceptional. not just in exceptional in terms of the role that they're doing, but that sense of help and that sense of achieving together. So yeah, that's definitely what's kept me all those years. But it does seem a very long time when I say it out loud.
But I'm sure several different careers in one, right? In terms of different
Absolutely.
jobs, different focuses. Why should, especially young people tuning in today, why should they join insurance? Like, why is it exciting?
Yeah, for me, if you think about the world, nothing happens without insurance. Nothing can progress. You can't build a house, you can't fly a plane, you can't. Society can't progress without insurance because it would halt. Things become too risky. So insurers and insurance takes risk away so that you can do what you want to do, build your own business. If you were terrified that, if you made a small mistake, that your business would be completely shut down because somebody would sue you, then it might stop you from trying. Whereas insurance gives you confidence. So, we give people confidence to realise their ambitions, whatever that is. So for me, it's more about society that is so interesting. You turn on the news, everything around the world, there's an element of insurance. So I think it's a really fascinating career. The other thing that I think is just exceptional is there's just different parts of insurance. It depends what not everyone's into, I'm into maths, not everybody's into maths. People have different drivers. So there's a place for lots of different people with lots of different skills. So I think that's the other thing. It can be a really varied career. It's a real people industry, just within, and it's thinking about our customers' needs, how their needs are changing, what they want tomorrow is different from what they wanted yesterday, how they buy. We talk about things like digital adoption, but you think about new products, new propositions. You think about how people need to protect themselves differently, cyber risk as an example, AI, we're all utilising AI. Now, that's a massive opportunity, but that's also risk because we've not done it before. So if you've not done something before, you might be opening yourself up to risk. If you can have some partnering with, so there's so many different, I would say, elements to insurance that I think is really fascinating. And I do think from a career point of view, it is quite undersold. So growing up, I didn't hear about people saying, "Oh, come and be an underwriter, come and work in insurance." So I think the more that we can do, just to get it on the map, to talk about it, and just to give people the option to experience it, I think the better, because it is a great career.
And if someone came to you right now and said they want to get into underwriting. Mm-hmm. And you only said they only had one action that they could do, what would the action you'd advise them to do?
Get some experience and get it. And there's lots of people that would give up their time for free. So, go and speak to somebody who, because you might say, I want that, but you don't really necessarily know what that potentially is. So, ask people. People are really generous with their time. Can I have a coffee? I really want to hear about your industry. I've never said no, ever, to anybody that's ever said, can I have a coffee? And people are like that with me. So people are really, really generous. There's lots of ways that you can get involved, maybe on a work experience. So ask to go and do some work experience, somewhere in the sector. There's lots of internships that you can do. There's talks that you can listen to. So I think the first thing is just ask people for time. People are really generous to really understand, is that something that you try it out? Is that something that I really find interesting? That would be the action that I say for people to do.
But also remember that you're the Group Chief Underwriting Officer, you only have one coffee a day, and people reach out, you may not be able to get to everyone, right?
That is absolutely true.
Yeah,
absolutely
so I'm just putting a little disclaimer in there, because you just said that you never say no to a coffee.
That is absolutely true.
So there's other people, but watch this.
I didn't just mean just me. I'm just saying within the industry, there are thousands of people who work in the industry.
I just saved you a lot of coffees there.
Absolutely, the same. And I do have 1 coffee a day, so.
And are you ready for my final question?
Absolutely.
What's your duvet flip? What gets you out of bed in the morning to flip the duvet?
So what actually gets me out of bed in the morning to flip the duvet is the promise of a black coffee. I have 1 a day, and literally my eyes open and I can't wait to get out of bed because I really enjoy it. So that's what actually gets me out of bed. But more metaphorically, what gets me out of bed is I'm just such a positive person. I almost think I get wiped every night with any negativity that disappears overnight, like a hard drive get wiped. And I wake up every morning with brimming with possibility. My glass is always half full. I always think of how I can improve myself, how I can improve what I do, how I can think of new ways of doing things. And so, yeah, I'm always pretty excited to start the day.
Well, you've got to give me the routine on what makes you get wiped, because I need some of that recently.
I think there are 2 types of sleepers. I think there genuinely are people who, like me, I think it's a superpower. I go to bed and within 30 seconds I'm asleep. And then people like my husband who says he lies awake for an hour or 2 mulling over lots of different things. But yeah, for me, it's a definite superpower. I go to bed to sleep and then wake up completely refreshed.
I love that. I always ask myself the next day, not every day, but when I do have time to reflect, is did I go to bed tired or drained? Because them 2 things are 2 different things, and if I'm going to bed tired, then that's good.
Yes.
If I'm going back bed drained and there's a consistent in being drained, there's a problem. We need to solve it. But if a black coffee wakes you up in the morning, why not, right? So I just want to say thank you for giving your time, your energy, your life lessons, and being a joy of fun.
Oh, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed it.
Well, it's
Thanks
good to
very
have
much,
a
Jack.
fellow
Welsh person
on the show.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
And there we are. Good? Happy?
Is that all right?
Yeah, really good.
Okay.
Goes quick, doesn't it?
It does. It goes really quick.